Our next speaker is actually a good friend of mine, so I feel sort of selfish up here. A former tax attorney and captain in the Israeli Defense Force and member of the class of 2013, Guy Holzman.
Hi, guys. Before coming to Anderson, when I went to bars to pick up women, the first thing they asked me was, "What do you do?" To which I replied, "I'm screwing you over." Now, the reason I said that was because I was a corporate tax lawyer. And folks, let me tell you something, I screwed the hell out of them. Because it was my job to make sure that corporations pay as little tax as possible, that the government does not collect anything. And today I'm going to talk to you about why it is important to collect taxes from corporations. It's huge, because it affects all of us. We're going to talk about how it affects all of us. I'm going to talk about a few of the ways they avoid taxation, and then we'll see what we can do about it. Why no, Mr. Whiskers? I'm not talking about increasing the tax rate. In fact, the US federal tax rate, 35%, is one of the highest in the Western world. The problem is that companies on average pay 12%. That's a third. Now, when companies pay only 12%, we miss out. No money for social workers, healthcare. Ever wonder why tuition is so expensive and continuing to rise? There's no money. Another thing that happens is that somebody has to pick up the gap. The government needs some kind of money to sustain itself. And who picks up the gap? That's right, you do. Because individuals pay 5 times more taxes than corporations. Now, our entire economy is based on corporations. The limited liability company rules. We all have jobs, we all get money from the corporations, yet they pay 5 times less taxes. Screwing you over. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk about how companies avoid taxation. This is very high level. This is only a few items. The tax code, by the way, is 72,500 pages long, which gives a lot of brackets for companies. But I'm going to talk about just a few of the things that makes it tick. First thing and most important, get all of the money to a tax shelter. We move the R&D, the IP, and the management of the company to the Bahamas, the Cayman Islands, anywhere where a good old-fashioned lawyer can come for 2 weeks and scuba dive. We give some local guy the corner office, and we make sure that he does what we tell him to do. He's the board of directors. There are several others. And once all of the activity is outside of the US, taxations happen outside of the US. So we pay 4% in the Bahamas. How much money gets into the US? 0. And it can stay there. Some companies, by the way, don't create subsidiaries. They transfer themselves out of the US and claim, we're not Americans anymore. We're in the Bahamas. Yay! You guys get screwed. Another way is to buy a malfunctioning company with lots and lots of losses and use those losses. In case you didn't know, losses are assets. Let's say a company has $10 billion of losses, and I can buy it cheap because it's malfunctioning. I can take those losses and use them for 20 years to wash out my profits. Now, there are restrictions about it in the tax code, but still, you get it for 20 years, and it's lovely, because I wash off my profits. No taxes for me. Another way of doing it, a main way of doing it, is stock options. Let's say the stock option I give my employee, my executives, is 10, and he cashes it out when it's worth 17. Company lost 7, right? Well, guess what? It's deductible. That means that you and I go hand in hand with those corporations as they pay their employees, and we basically help pay the employees those stock options. Now, seriously, are you feeling screwed yet? one of my favorites is what the companies do with their money in general. See, the Fortune 100 companies are estimated to put more money in lobbying than they do in taxes. They pay these guys, not just the speaker, and they convince them to say all sorts of things like, companies create jobs. Now, that's true. Companies do create jobs. Does it have anything to do with taxes? No. Citizens for Just Taxation released this November a report about taxation of 280 companies of the S&P 500. Of them, 30 in the last 3 years paid an average of 0 tax. Among them, Boeing made 9.5 billion in profits in those 3 years. Wells Fargo, 50 billion. And DuPont and Yahoo. How many jobs these companies created? Exactly 0. In fact, they laid off 50,000 people combined. Their combined revenue in those 3 years, their combined profits in those 3 years, $160 billion. But they give money to lobbyists. Who gets screwed? You do. Now, my favorite is donations. There is a certain toy company in South California, famous one, which in the last 3 years made over $1 billion combined profits. In their tax report, they say, we give 2% donations of our net income, which, by the way, is huge. It's more than other companies. It's huge. One little problem. That company doesn't tell you that for the past 3 years, their average tax rate is 0. They give 2% donations, but they don't give anything to the government. Now, when you and I pay the government, when I pay taxes, there's no reporter out there trying to take my picture. But when they do it, they do. There are reporters, because they give to hospitals and communities and animal shelters, and they basically profit of the fact that people see them do what they do. When you pay taxes, nobody cares about you. Nobody asks you if you want to give money to build roads, if you want to give money for tuition, if you want to give money for social workers. Nobody asks you. But they donate, and they get the PR. And they don't tell you that during that, a lot of times they also don't pay taxes. Oh, and by the way, donations, they're deductible. Now, my main point here is that it concerns all of us. And this is not an issue of bad corporate America or Gordon Geckos or evil people. It's not. Companies are doing what you and I would do. We want to pay the least amount of tax, and we try to do that. They also try to do that. They have brackets, industry brackets, general zone brackets, whatever. They use what they can, because all of it is legal. The problem is with policy. And it's not about Republican Democrats. They all get money from companies as well. It's about policy. This should really tick you off. All of you, I think, should write to your congressman, to your senator, to your president, and tell him, I am mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Say it with me. I am mad as hell. No. I am mad as hell, and I am not going to take it anymore. Thank you.
Let's keep you up here for a second. Stay up here for a second. Stay up. Right here. Guy Holzman, everyone. No. You got to stay here for a second. We're going to hang out. We're going to hang out. I like Guy Holzman because he makes good points in an Israeli accent. I love Guy so much. So Guy, I just have like 1 or 2 questions for you before you get off the stage here.
Go for it.
The first of which is, I mean, you seem really passionate about, corporate taxation, about really like ethical behavior within business. You're a guy who, obviously has a lot of education within the space. Do you work out?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. Yes, I do.
Shameless.
Actually, not really, because it's all steroids. So.
It's all steroids. Israeli steroids.
Israeli steroids. Yes.
As you can see, they work. No question. If there is one company that you could tax at like 90% anywhere in the world, what would it be and why?
Well, let's take Apple for example. Oh. Okay. Suppose the US government, and will be controversial, this will be something that
A little bit.
a lot of Republicans will be pissed about. But let's say that the US government decides that Apple will not sell iPhones in the country anymore unless it gives 20% of its revenue to the government. Let's say that happens. What do you think Apple's going to do? It's going to give 20% of its revenue. Because this economy is still the biggest in the world. And whatever the US government says, companies will do. If you tell them we'll shut you out, they will do anything to stay in. Because there's problems with politicians and because there's debates and because nobody can agree on anything, that will never happen. But still, take out the biggest corporations, take their money. It's that simple. But again, don't get me wrong. A lot of companies need those brackets. Companies lose money and they need brackets. I'm for just taxation. If a company is in need, and there are a lot of brackets that are beneficial and they're right, but a lot of them are not. It's just guys like me, you have no idea how much money they give to tax lawyers and accountants and consultants. You really don't know what they're doing. And it's all legal. Again, we bend the law. We don't break it. We just bend it. It's legal.
Guy Holzman, everyone.